Yo, what's up, everyone? So we're just jamming on. We're just jamming on Prism. I've been super busy the last little bit, and I have not been able to really do a whole bunch of work on Prism. Um, let's see. Let's turn off center stage. Cool. So I've been super busy, buried between like work, family stuff, personal stuff. Just really haven't had a chance to spend like a lot of time on Prism, unfortunately. So I've got a bunch of PRs to get through. I got some issues to get through. Maybe I'll talk through some of the changes that I've been sort of thinking about. Kind of been circling, like coming now full circle back to a refactor that I've been sort of pushing off, but I think is going to be super advantageous in the long run, and maybe work on a little streaming stuff. Excuse me, my dogs are going a little nuts. So yeah, gonna hop in. I don't know how long I've got to stream today. I just figured I'd hop in and do something. You know, if I'm working, might as well stream it. So let's just hop in. Sick. So I've already merged. I've already merged a couple PRs. But I merged a couple before I decided like to stream. So we'll just here we can actually let's just like walk through those. So what have I closed so far today? Refactor for like using using the provider meta as string keys. So right now it was just using the enum for provider meta. Let's take a look. So for like the with provider meta method for both like getting and setting data, it was exclusively using the enum. It was exclusively using the enum, which is fine, except if we're gonna like allow, you know, custom providers to be used or like external providers. I know Chris, a very good friend of Prism, a very active contributor. He's working on a Bedrock provider that's actually going to be under the Prism org as a separate package because it does have some external dependencies on like the AWS SDK, and I don't know, I just didn't feel like supporting it as like part of the core of Prism, so we thought we'd break that out into its own package. So we've got that going on, and with that, we need to be able to accept this as strings. We needed to be able to do this anyways for custom providers, but it was just like an oversight. So Chris contributed that, got that merged in the docs. I had used like not a valid model for a bunch of Anthropic examples, just Claude 3 Sonnet, which isn't available. Like it's just not an actual model. So we had a PR from again another one from Chris, fixing the model names. So this is actually pinning it to a specific model, which you can also use as Claude 3-5-sonnet-latest, and like that'll also work. But at least this is now like a valid model when you look at the docs. And then we had a contribution from Mac McDonald UK. He added in null support for max tokens. So before I was defaulting this value in the different like provider handlers, and all that works. I think this is just a better way of like defaulting it at the top level. This is how I handle a lot of defaults, is inside of either the like basically inside of the traits that get used for the pending request class. So this now defaults it in a similar way to how I've handled the rest of the defaults. It was null before, now we default it to 2048. Now that I'm looking at this, I remember why I used null, that was the reason why I used null initially was some providers like to basically allow provider to use the provider default. So if there was nothing provided, it would just default to whatever the provider internally had set. But now we at least set it to 2048 as a default. Yeah, I think I agree with Chris here. That makes it like more discoverable. Pushpak, yep, absolutely on that. So now we're like back to where I left off. I don't know if I'm ready to do like a big review for Gemini structured outputs. I really should get to that today. I just don't really feel like doing that now. So we're gonna hop around, do a couple other ones. We already got a couple approvals here. I already looked at this one. So basically, with OpenAI, there's like some models that support structured output, some models that support JSON output, which is different, and so I need to basically be able to like switch between those two. And then I think there are some models that just like flat out don't support either, and this just like makes an update. This PR updates the arrays for like what's supported, what's unsupported, what's JSON mode. So already approved this. Let's update. So you can save that. You can grab that, come down here, squash merge, we'll update the commit name. I've been trying to use the conventional commits lately. So what is it? So there's like this conventional commits strategy, standardish. I've been trying to like switch over to this. And so basically like the guidelines are like it's got a prefix, and then you can scope it, and then you add your description and everything, and then you call out like breaking changes as well. Yeah, so you've got like prefixes for like chore, doc, style, refactor, perf, testing. So you've got some options. I've been liking it. It's a little tedious, I think, but I like it. All right, what do we got? This big one with code base cleanup. This was a big one, and I like it. It was good cleanup. I think there was something in this that hoisting read only. I was a little like hoisting read only to the class level was something I was a little torn about. But I think it makes sense for these like read only value objects. Just automatically makes everything read only. Spelling error. Forgot the type hint. Fix the spelling error. Another value object, read only. So I don't know how I feel about this one. Sorry, I'm trying to think about it. Because right now it uses an array map. I think this is fine. I'll let it go. Read-only providers. I think that's fine for now. I'm a little torn on it, but like okay, I'm fine with it. I think that's fine too. Sorry, I don't have a lot of this is just reading through everything. Yeah, I'm gonna hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I had to fire off a couple of messages. All right, let's keep digging in. Another read-only change. All right, I think. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if we can fix this one. I need to make a decision on this one. It's been open for too long. Let's just do it. I think it's really got not a ton of consequence. Let's fix this spelling change, this PEC issue. Oops. Oh, I gotta move this down. The camera's in the way, I can't see anything. I just updated my OS, and I just updated like all my homebrew packages. So I think this is. Let's try to fix this real quick. Oops. Ah. I use Package X as well as Homebrew to like install certain things just because I know I stumbled across it and I thought it was pretty neat. So I use that too. Alright, cool. Alright, so let's go look at this PR. This is 163. Ooh. I could have swore I had a git command to check out PRs. Oh yeah. There we go. Oh, I never remember how I got stuck in that. Alright, what do we got here? We got depreciation warnings. Because I just updated Homebrew. Oh, what is it? We'll just ask Cloud real quick. Ah, it's PHP INI. Wow. I really don't want my depreciation warnings right now. All right, let's go back. I don't know. I think that's what we'll call it. Hopefully this doesn't throw a wrench in anybody else's PRs or work. Getting through the lists. All right. Sorry. Blowing up a little bit. Hopefully the music's not too loud. Please speak up in chat if it is. I don't even know what we're listening to. Just I tossed on my like weekly Discover and let it ride. All right. So this was an issue that was introduced with like a recent PR where system prompt and like the method with system prompt and like system prompt were like being duplicated with different providers. So let's just read through this. We do not need to add the system prompt to the message in the request in order for that to be available in the response, so we cannot remove it without refactoring the generator. Prompt is not used at all other than in testing insertions, which is easy. System prompt is only used in the handlers, where it's added to the top of the messages, right? Anyways, so that's not necessarily true. So for system prompts, it depends on the provider. So for example, let's group together like OpenAI, and then let's separate like Ollama and Anthropic. So OpenAI gets its system prompts through the messages. So you add a system prompt type message, and oh, definitely. What's up, Push? I've got to get your pronunciation at some point, man. Send me an audio message in Telegram. Pushback, thank you for hopping in the chat, man. I am so appreciative of all the work. I am in, like, I'm in shipping mode today for sure. You know, I've been buried, but I was so inspired by Taylor's, like the end of Taylor's talk at Laracon EU, about just shipping, man. So that's the mood I'm trying to bring today, is like, let's knock through this and ship some stuff. So, let's see, get rid of that. All right. So, right. What I was saying, OpenAI, it gets its system prompt, like you provide the model its system prompt through the like array of messages that you send as part of the chat. Anthropic and Ollama actually have a top level, like in the main request body, have a field for, hey, thanks for the follow, have a top level, like in the body of the request, a field for system prompts. And difference even between the two of them, Anthropic doesn't support the message type of system message. Ollama still does, so it even gets like a little bit more confusing. Where with Ollama you can provide both the system message as a like top level, like in the top, like here I'll just show you. I think let's see how easy it is to show you. I don't know if it is. Let's get updated. All right, so if we look at Ollama, let's go to the text handler. We look at send request, right? So at the top level, oops. So right here, I'll even, is that better? Maybe this is better. All right. So at the top level, when we send the request, it accepts both. This song's getting a little annoying. At the top level, like the main request that we make for the chat completion, there's a field for messages and there's a field for system prompt. You can still send system type messages in the messages field, but this system field is very important because the way that Ollama works, you can actually pack your models with a system prompt as part of the model definition. So if we take a look at, let's see, if we look at, let's take a look at some Ollama models I have here. Does Phi have a system prompt? I think Quinn does. Let's take a look. So it has its license. System prompt. Let's scroll back up. All right, so you can see here in the model file, so like the definition for the Ollama model, there's actually a system prompt here. And in order to be able to override this, you have to use that like top level request field for system prompt. So it gets really tricky. Oops. It gets kind of tricky for like how you define some of this stuff. So in this pull request, here, I'll make this a little bigger too. In this pull request, like it says system prompt is only used in the handlers to add it to the top of the messages array. That's not necessarily true. It depends on the provider. And Chris and I had talked about this. Actually, Chris was super awesome. Hopped on a call with me last week. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, like about this big refactor that I might circle back around to with a much more focused outlook. Oh, here, give me just a second. I think my son needs something. He was just running down here to grab something off the 3D printer. No biggie. All right, so yeah, so anyhow, I was saying Chris was super awesome. Hopped on a call with me, talked about through a big refactor, talked about this. He's working on AWS Bedrock as a provider right now. Like, super thankful. But it was cool to be able to hop on a call and like talk about some of these changes. So we talked through this. I wonder if we was able to go back through and update some of this. Let's see what we got. Yeah, but see, this isn't true for... I forgot where we landed on this. Let's see if we can get through a different PR quicker. As much as I really want to get to that one, but I want to see if we've got some other stuff. So let's see. All right, we can talk about this one real quick. Let's see, where was that? There was a discussion about this. Yeah, this is it. 159. Oh, I'm sorry if y'all can hear my dogs going crazy. I don't know what's going on. Yes, push. Bedrock is wild, man. Yeah, so we can. I think he's made like pretty good progress on it, actually. I think he's made pretty good progress on it. We should be getting to it pretty soon. I'll have to check in on it. Like, honestly, it'll probably be tomorrow before I look at it again. Just trying to get through like issues and pull requests today as my main focus. But it's kind of, I think it's coming along well. And so that's actually going to be, I mentioned it a little bit earlier in the stream. It's actually going to be a little different. We are not going to we're going to try something different. I think, we're going to release Bedrock as a separate package. So the reason being is all these other providers, the only dependency that they have is on like Laravel's HTTP helper, because that's what we use for everything. So that's it's their only dependency. So AWS Bedrock actually needs the AWS SDK in order to make it significantly easier to do authentication and other things like that. So we're going to try releasing that one as a separate package. It'll be like Echo Labs Dev / Prism - Bedrock. And yeah, something a little different. So looking at this PR, I was just saying, I think it's 159. $73. All right, here we can do. super appreciative of people who open PRs. Yeah, thanks for that sanity check. As much as I mean, it's still gonna be first party support for Bedrock. It'll be a separate package. And honestly, I've come really close to, actually, when Chris and I talked last week, I left that call sort of convinced that I was going to break out all providers to separate packages. I was convinced that I was going to break out all providers to separate packages. And the reason being is, I guess we can dive into this. Here, we can move to floating head mode here. So this refactor, I think in total, I've probably lost like 6 weeks of work to chasing after a refactor for, basically eliminating this like middle piece. Here, we'll step through this. All right. So if we look at the Prism class, let's just take a look at text generation, right? So when you call Prism : text, that returns an instance of pending text request. And that uses all these traits to have, these traits are essentially the fluent building for the request, where we have configures the client, configures generation, models, configures providers, it has messages, it has prompts, it has provider meta, it has tools. So this is your fluent building right here in traits. Then we have this method of toRequest, which actually takes all of the fluent built properties and then turns them into a text request value object. Then when you call the generate method, what the generate method does is actually creates an instance of a text generator class, calls the generate method on that, and then passes that request value object. So if we go look at the generator, what the generator is responsible for is sending the provider. It's like basically responsible for the entire request loop. So there's like a request loop that takes place for text generation. It's a little different for structured output, and a little bit different for embedding. Like definitely very different for embedding. But for text generation, like we can walk through this, right? So what the generator does is it grabs a trait for some helper methods for invoking tools, and it creates a new instance of the response builder class. So the response builder class, we have a very rich response object with every generation step, like an array of every step of the generation process, and then that's got different attributes on it. It's got a field for all of the response messages that are just response messages. That's helpful for doing things like chat. Let me switch up the music a little bit. So that's responsible for like just building, like fluently building up the entire request object. Here, I'm gonna put on my I know what I want to put on. I've been low-key obsessed with this album. All right, so we create a new response builder class. We can, if we look at the response builder class, it's basically like a couple collections. We add steps, and then it's also responsible for generating the final response object. So it goes through, like we basically build up all the steps. So at the last step of generation, we basically pull almost all of those things forward to the final response object. So you have like access to the final step for everything in like a super easy way, but then you can also go back and inspect like all the different steps if you need to. So, right, so like we kind of build some stuff up, and then we get into like the meat of everything, which is this generate method. So this generate method is responsible for sending the provider request, taking the response from that, creating an assistant message for the message chain, adding that to the response builder, adding that to the request so that that request object like now has the response available to it. Then if the provider's finish reason is tool calls, we know we need to invoke the tool. So that's where we use that calls tools trait to invoke the tools. We take the result of all of the tool calls and then add that to a message, add that to the request, so that in subsequent requests using the with max step method, we now have the full message chain with the assistant response, the tool results, because after we have tool results, we need to recurse and send those tool results back to the model so it has something to, like, it knows what to do with the tool result. Like, it knows what to do after we've invoked the tools, right? So we add a whole response step. We add like a whole step of generation to it. And then we check to see if we should continue based on max steps and based on the response finish reason. If we should continue to generate, like we have max steps greater than 1, and the response, the response's finish reason is not stop, then we just recurse and continue to generate, else we return the final response object, right? So these generator classes are responsible for like basically coordinating all of the abstractions together into this like whole request loop, right? So the providers then are, so like if we look at the send provider request, super easy. We just call like the provider, we call the text message on the provider, and we pass the request object to it. So we look at just the contract even for the provider. The providers are responsible for returning a provider response, which is like a very generalized value object for the providers to return. So that's like the general architecture for how Prism functions and like how it performs generation. The refactor is this. And we can change this to and so these would also change to we should have structured, and so we can call this right, and then we would, like, we already have the embedding response here. So what this would do is essentially eliminate the generators and make the providers themselves responsible for the entire request loop. And the reason why I want to do that is so that there's ultimate flexibility for providers to do whatever they need to do to generate the like expected output. So one of the places that this comes in handy, and the reason we kind of got into this discussion, is talking about system messages and like how they work for each different provider. So if we look at a text request, we can look at all of these like read-only properties, right? We have the prompt, we have the system prompt, we have the messages. And so the messages I'd prefer on the request to solely be messages that were provided with the with messages method. Otherwise, if you're using with system prompt and the prompt method, then these two properties would be defined. So when this goes to OpenAI, for example, like we talked a little bit about earlier, OpenAI takes system prompts as part of the messages. Well, now if we eliminate the generator, then OpenAI can just basically take that, and then as part of its generation loop, its very first step would be like, all right, I gotta take the system prompt off the request object and add it to the message stack. Or if you're providing messages, then you just provide the system prompt as like the very first message in the message chain. So prompt is always part of the message chain. System prompt, not necessarily. So this kind of opens up that flexibility to allow the provider to do whatever it needs to do with a system prompt, and they can all handle it different, and there's like, they can customize their generation loop however they need to. This also has implications on structured output. So a little while ago, um, we can go to this view. So structured output. Initially, I had released structured output with support for tool use. I somewhat recently pulled tool use out of structured output because it was getting so complex to support the request loop for all different providers and make it work with tools and all of their like custom structured output steps, because not everything's linear between all the providers. OpenAI does structured output different than Ollama does, especially now that we're using Ollama's native API instead of their OpenAI compatibility layer. And so there's like implications there. Anthropic does it different as well. They only support like, they don't actually support structured output. Anthropic's very good at structured output. They don't support structured output. You send a message requesting that it responds in structured output with a JSON, like with the JSON schema, and it does pretty consistently. So there's all these like different things that make it a little bit more complex. So again, a couple steps back, one of the reasons why I considered breaking out all providers to their own separate packages is because I have some weird mental barrier with allowing the providers to get complex inside of the Prism package itself. I don't know why, but I do. So if I separated all the providers into their own packages, who cares how complex they get? They're their own packages. Like, they sit alone. You're not including every single one of them when you install Prism. But that could lead to like a subpar developer experience. And like one of my core tenets with this is that it's just stupid easy to set up. It is so easy to just get up and running and use that like I want them to be part of the package without having to then go, all right, well, I've installed Prism, now I got to go install my first provider. It's just complex. Sure, I could do something similar to what I did when I created the Honey Badger Laravel package. Is it basically shipped with a install command. So you do like composer require echo labs dev Prism, and then you would run PHP artisan install Prism, or like Prism : install, right? So that could run through the installer process, and then it could prompt you as part of that, have like a really nice like Laravel prompts CLI, where it will like prompt you to be like, hey, do you want to install providers? What providers do you want to install? And then that command can handle all of the composer require for everything. I could make it really easy, but I don't know. I think I'm just going to leave them where they're at, and I'm just going to I'm going to make a couple changes so I can actually ship individual provider changes like this, and then just like push off all the complex loops, like request loops, to each provider, treat each provider as its own like mini package inside of Prism. And this all kind of gets back to the way that like the initial inspiration for Prism was Vercel's AI SDK, and they actually handle all the providers. It's a mono repo, but they handle all the providers as separate packages. So there's already kind of a precedence for this, but I think my game plan as of right now is to probably move forward with that refactor, but do it in a way that I can like gradually roll it out. So maybe union types on return types for now while I work on that, and because ultimately like you're going to get the same response object either way, just instead of coming from the generator, it's going to come from the provider class. I don't know. Thanks for following me on that journey. I don't know if any of that made sense, or if that really got us anywhere, but that's this big refactor that I'm working on. Some thoughts on like breaking out more providers as packages. I think for now we're going to leave everything but Bedrock internal to Prism, and I'm going to start making that refactor to eliminate the generators. That is going to have some implications. I don't know what I'm going to do with streaming output. Streaming output is very important and highly requested. And if I decide to pursue this refactor, it's going to push back streaming output. So I may try to get streaming output in first. I don't know. That's going to be my big goal for next week, is to see how far I can push streaming output. Yeah, lots to think about. It's a big refactor because all of our providers, I don't know how many providers we have now, like 5. I got to go refactor every single one of them into these request loops. So what I might do is I might take a stab at one and like let Claude see if it can do the rest. Maybe DeepSeek, I don't know. A lot of work. So I may even lay it out and see if I can get some help. Like let me lay out the idea here. See if I can go to the community and get some people to pitch in on like helping me make the refactor. I don't know. Let's get back to it. All right. All right. More granular exceptions. This introduced. All right. So Chris raised an issue about adding some more granular level exceptions, and I think that that's a great idea. I would love to be able to like extend the Prism exception and have some more specific exceptions. So I'm all for having more specific exceptions for all this stuff, but I also don't have the time or drive to go through and refactor all the exceptions for all the different providers and everything. So I think what we're going to do is introduce more granular exceptions, and then either as I run into them through my work, or hopefully as other people run into these other exceptions, they can come back and progressively enhance the code base by contributing more fine-grained exceptions for things. So I know Chris uses Anthropic a lot, so I believe that this is going to be Anthropic-specific updates. How do we want to cover this in docs? No breaking changes. 2 weeks, man, I'm so sorry. This is ridiculous. I should be more on top of these. All right, so I started reviewing this. Don't know where I fell off, but all right. How do we handle rate limits? This is in a new doc. Cool. I love these docs, man. I am Chris. If you see this, for anybody, I am just I really appreciate code contributions to Prism, but I'll tell you, I almost appreciate doc contributions like more than the code, because docs are everything. I highly value the docs. So if you open a PR and add like docs as part of your PR, I love it. With code changes, if you look at our documentation, you find gaps, you think something could be better, even just like pull requests to fix spelling mistakes or grammar or code examples in the docs, I am over the moon appreciative of that stuff. So let's see what we got. Yeah, I'm all for this. Check self. What did we... Yeah, so one of the things that I had talked about with Chris on our call when we were looking at this, um, sorry, still just getting a bunch of messages about stuff. All right, so Prism request is part of this. We have request objects for each type of completion. So text, structured, embedding all have their own request objects. We're basically creating an empty interface for all Prism requests just so we can have a generic type hint for all of those for part of this. And so one of the things that I recommended is that we maybe have a method on the request of like is, so that we can say it is this class, like it is a structured request, it is a text request, just so we have some way of like being able to check things. So we've added that there. Hit a provider rate limit. I dig that. Oh, and the reason being is actually one of the reasons I really like this refactor is part of the refactor that I was just talking about, the one that I was like super long-winded about getting rid of generators. This will allow things like what Chris is doing here with creating affordances inside of each provider to like help deduplicate different things. So he's created an abstract handler for Anthropic, and we need to be able to have a generic type hint for the different request objects. So that takes care of that. I like this. This will be nice. So here it is. We're testing to see like it is a text request. I probably could be pickier about some of this stuff, but I also don't want to like pick at these too much because the code's honestly like fine. Just like some of the way I approach PRs is like I think get a little bit pickier about this, but I think it's good enough. And do we have to include? No, because it's part of Laravel. We have Carbon. Is I can always refactor this stuff when I come across it again too. Like, this is probably fine. Test adds a update to our fixture, like our response fixturing, to add headers because we'll get like rate limit stuff through headers. Sick. I'm about this. We are shipping. This is going to be a big release. All right, so let's say feature rate limit. Yeah. Gosh, I cannot type. Get me on stream, and now I can't type. Am I like crazy? Nope, it's fine. All right, we'll grab this. Oh yeah, that's where I asked for this. That was awesome. Conflicts? What conflicts do we have? Ah! Telling me we have conflicts, but then doesn't tell. I'm sure it's from that gigantic refactor that I just did. That merged. Ugh. All right. Man, I built this checkout PR command for Jake Bennett, and I never thought I would use it, but now that I've been maintaining Prism, I use it somewhat frequently. What it does here, I'll show you. Why not? Let's check it out over here. I know where it is. I'm just lazy. All right, so we have like a little verified dependencies thing because we use, I use Charm Gum for CLIs a lot, and then we're using JQ. So what we do is we get all the PRs. We use the GitHub CLI to like list all the PRs in JSON. We get the number, title, author, head reference, and then we have this variable for like selected PR, where we go through all the PRs, we use JQ to separate everything, and then we pass it off to the gum filter command. And then we strip the PR number off of the selected PR, and then we use the GitHub CLI to then check out that PR number. So nothing crazy, but you'll see that we do that, and we can like filter on the stuff. It's great. So we need to look at 144. Let's see what we got. Read only was the read only, the read only, the read only. Cool, we can fix these. Getting gassed, guys. Getting gassed. I'm tired. How do I want to resolve these? I guess we'll just... I know I'm using the terminal in NeoVim and still using my mouse to select everything because, yeah, I'm that guy. All right, we want... Last one, I think. I think just bring git commit. Was it man? All right, let's while this is running, let's find some music. I'm just gonna throw on my tracks. It's gonna be a mix of random stuff, I think. All right. Oh, whoa, what? What? Did they just create a new branch? Ah, what did they just do? All right, we're gonna do this. We're just gonna, it's messy, but I don't care. Sometimes stuff just gets messy, right? What do we call it? Oops, oops. Oh my gosh. My brain is frying out. All right. Shit. That is not what I wanted to do. So what I want to do, C144. Nope. Let's get it. Again, hey, everybody watching this stream, thank you for hanging out with me and watching and like riding along as we just try to ship a whole bunch of stuff and get kind of caught back up. Oh, whatever. We're gonna bypass as long as everything passed. I don't know about this one. I'm too exhausted to get through this one right now. Even though it's a fix, I'm running out of steam to look at that one. Let's get a new here. We're gonna. We'll just close that one out. I'm not sure I want to support it because y'all can just loop through Prism calls for multiple embeddings. I don't know if I really want to support sending in an array of embeddings. I don't know if I have a really good reason for it though either. Just, I don't know, gut check. Let's take a look at this. Nope. I don't feel like reviewing that right now. These 173, 162, 161 are kind of big ones. And I know what we've been going for an hour 15. I'm getting gassed out, so I don't really feel like diving into these big ones right now, and I can probably hit them fresh tomorrow morning. I can hit like over coffee, hit one of them. I mean, we'll probably do that for the rest of them, but I think this one. Let's see. I'm for it. I like it. All right, let's kick off CI. Let's come up with a better name for this. Let's call this a fix for OpenAI. I'm like out of frame. I 3D printed myself a new camera mount, so I got like more of a straight on shot, but it overlaps my screen about the height of an iPhone. So it's been taking me a little bit of getting it adjusted to. Way better. Love it, but sick. So let's see what we have left. We got the three big ones. So let's take a look at issues. All right, I know I merged that in. Merged by 170. Any errors with tools? What is this? Hey, Nuno stream. Shout out to Nuno. Don't know if he's... I don't know, maybe he's streaming. We'll have to see afterwards. Maybe shoot him a raid or something. Yeah, if y'all know, I'm probably going to wrap this up in, I don't know, another 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. We'll see. If y'all think I should raid somebody, definitely drop me a chat and I'll go raid them on Twitch. I don't know how many. Looks like we're about at 150-ish viewers, but I think most people are coming from Twitter. So, I don't know. If you got somebody for us to raid on Twitch, I'd be up for that. All right, let's see what we got. Ah, push. You're already on it, man. Love this. Gosh. Like I said, if you're still watching Pushpack, send me a voice message on Telegram. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you so much for being on top of this. Seriously, I can't even express my gratitude appropriately. This is awesome to come in here and find this. We'll leave it open for now. We had some discussion in here already about how I removed tools from structured output. Basically, somebody can't update because I pulled the support. Someone also waiting on the update. And then basically I came back and said, hey, I did remove it on purpose. For some providers, like tools and structured output was just getting too complex. So what I did is I left an example of how to still do tool use through text generation and structured output. So you basically, we defined a weather tool and an output schema for our structured output. Basically being able to have like a tool that we simulate a request to like a forecast API, like a weather API. And then our schema for our output object is an object with weather report. It's got a string and number schemas for like location, temperature, conditions, summary, right? And so we do the text generation with the weather tool, asking it like, what's the current weather conditions for Paris? Please provide a detailed summary. Super simple prompt with the tool. And then we basically take the response from the text and create a new prompt for structured output where we pass in the schema, and in the prompt we give it the output from the text generation, and then we get a structured response back of this like associative array where we have location, temperature, conditions, and summary. So it works great. Doing it as a two-step process. I like the pros and cons here. I think I'm not going to circle back to this until I do streaming and or like the bigger provider refactor. We already know about this. I'm torn on this. I'm gonna sleep on this one. I'm getting mentally drained here. All right, let's cut a release, and then we'll kind of cut a release. We'll go post on socials about it, and we'll circle back to some of this later. One of my longer streams too. I normally like cap it at an hour. But we've been having fun getting a bunch of stuff done. Let's draft a new release. What do we got? 0.35. Boom. Look at that. Look at all those updates. I'm big ol' release. I like it. Let's cut it. Let's grab the link. Let's go over to our social area. Big time. Dang, Aaron. Oh, cat. Sorry, got distracted. All right. I don't know if we need to be that long-winded. Turn up the music a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's too loud now. I don't know, chat. Somebody tell me. Post all those. All right, let's go to Blue Sky. We'll do the same thing. All over the place. New wallpaper. All right. Let's see, we doing all right? We got discussions I wanted to get to too. Oh, Chris. Jeez. Already on it. I'm just gonna mark that as the answer. Cool. I just like don't try not to leave stuff linger too much. Leave that one open, that one open. I don't know. Does anyone have an opinion on this? Someone basically requested if I can support Laravel 10. Um, I'm not opposed to it. Like everything should work. I just decided like 11 had just come out when I started on this, so I like pinned the version at 11. No like no real reason for it. Let's see. To peer dependency on like Laravel framework 11. I'm torn on this. Maybe we do this then. Yeah, it should work. Like that's the thing is like that totally should work. I just don't know if I want to like Yeah, and here's the thing. Laravel 10 is only getting security fixes until 5 days ago. Yeah, I think based on this, we're gonna Yeah, I think based on security fixes already being, we were already past the date for cutoff for like Laravel 10 security fixes. So like I want to be a good steward of this. Like I think people should be keeping this stuff up to date, as much as possible. I understand. Like, look, I've worked places that an upgrade from 10 to 11 could be a very big deal, especially if you didn't follow framework conventions and did a bunch of custom stuff. Like it can be really kind of problematic to upgrade, but like if I can be part of the forcing mechanism to get people to keep stuff up to date, I guess I'd like to be an advocate for that. So I think if there's enough pressure to do this, like enough people, and I don't know what that threshold is, but if enough people decide, and if enough people come to me and say like, hey, I really need Laravel 10 support, I think I can be convinced to do it. But I think we're just gonna like leave it at 11 for now. If this issue had come up like 6 months ago, I'd maybe be thinking something different, but all right, y'all, I'm gonna call it at that. We got a lot done today. We got a big release. We got our issues down to like 4 issues. We got our issue count down. We got a ton of pull requests merged. We got a couple big ones to get to next week. Maybe I'll live stream them. Maybe I won't. We'll see. The thing that kind of is a bummer is that the same time I could stream is also the same time Nuno's streaming, and I can't compete with that. So like Nuno's just electric and his stream is always popping. So I don't feel like I can compete with that. So I gotta find like another ideal time to stream. I don't know, maybe some lunch streams or something. I can like stream like noon, 1 o'clock Eastern for like an hour. I don't know. We'll see. But appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, riding along with me as we like just knock out open source maintaining. Appreciate y'all, and we'll catch you around in the next one.
Taking what you earn, then you always getting burned. Put they face on the curb. You got to bang bang. They wanna take what you got, wanna blow up the spot. I don't care if he's a cop. You got to bang bang. Jealousy is a bitch, it be twitch. He's a snitch, trigger finger got the itch. You got to bang bang. You wanna fuck with my game, won't be bringing you the pain, and ain't never gonna change.
They say the pen's like a sword. Right before my Soto Shadi was born, knocked on your door, popped the entire mind on the floor. Murdered the usual crimes just to gain the acceptance of a circle of super tyrants in a race for weapons. Most popular, of course, the AK-47, bought a dirty bomb for 900K. In North Yemen, we the shifty face, personification of militants, facilitate pistol spray, incredible distance behind the scenes of intrigue. In the code technology, orchestrated chaos, catapult fear society, seeds the planet, deceit and evil sees the planet. Making choice, feast to famine, we creep with cannons and spray everything like a fire truck and such. Still smoking like somebody just sparked up a Dutch. Or the Branch Davidian compound, around town, doomsday could start now, motherfucker countdown.
If they taking what you earn, then you always getting burned. Put they face on the curb. You got to bang bang. They wanna take what you got, wanna blow up the spot. I don't care if he's a cop. You got to bang bang. Jealousy is a bitch, it be twitch. He's a snitch, trigger finger got the itch. You